Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Revealing. Once again, I'm your host, Pavarotti. And again, to start out, this is an opinion channel. I'm just giving my opinion. I'm not trying to slander anyone. I'm not going to use any names in this other than Brian Koberger, because law enforcement has pretty much felt the need to slander his name, so I feel I can slander it without any impunity. So, originally I was going to make 6 videos breaking all this down, but I'm going to have to put off on that 6th video to unveil my final piece of evidence, because after reading the feedback from a lot of your comments, I feel like I haven't done my job to fully get across my point of view as it comes to what actually happened in Moscow, Idaho. So what I want to do today is revisit the crime scene, point out a few other areas where the law enforcement narrative seems to fall short, and see if I can fill in some of those blanks in those areas. Now let's take a look back at the actual crime, and let's review some of the evidence that's been made available to us. One of the things that's out there, law enforcement has put out there, is what one of the witnesses had seen and heard during those hours in that house on that fateful night in Moscow. I believe one of the things that she said that she heard was a dog playing upstairs with one of the victims. So I can imagine, having lived there with that particular person and her dog for a significant amount of time, this was not something that she hadn't heard before if she's identifying the sounds of her playing with her dog. You know, probably a dog barking, probably some noise bouncing around like somebody playing with that dog. You know, not something unusual. No other unusual sounds were mentioned. Now, one of the other things that she heard was one of her roommates saying, "There's somebody here." And then finally, it was a man's voice saying, "Don't worry, I'm going to help you." Now, let's talk about that for just a minute. How thin were the walls in this house? I mean, if you can hear somebody playing with their dog upstairs, you can hear the dog barking, you can hear things bouncing around. I would think that it's like any other house, you know, you can hear things fairly easily. What she didn't say that she heard was 2 people being attacked. Now, maybe that was a very quiet event. I don't, in my mind, I can't imagine how it could have been. And when I think about the other things that she heard, like one of her roommates saying, "There's somebody here," it makes me think, how loud was that? The way it's being portrayed, it was like somebody saying, "Hey, there's somebody here." But if the walls were really that thick and you're not able to hear 4 people being ferociously attacked, then I would have to say that maybe the words that were said were, "Hey, there's somebody here," which would cause somebody alarm, I would think. So maybe that's not how it was said. Maybe it was just, "Hey, there's somebody here." So that means that you could really hear things well in this house. "Don't worry, I'm going to help you." Not a strange voice screaming, "Don't worry, I'm going to help you." Doesn't make any sense. I mean, that would cause alarm, and it doesn't sound like she was alarmed when she heard this too much. So how is it possible? I'm gonna give everybody some homework, okay? I want you to go to one of your loved ones, a female. It could be your mother, your daughter, your sister, your friend. Just pick any you like. But what I'd like for you to do is wait until they're not paying attention, stealthily sneak up behind them, and making sure that they don't know that you're there. I want you to reach out and grab them and go, ah! And then I want you to take note of their reaction. I believe 100 times out of 100, it will be them screaming loud, ah! Because that's what women do when you scare them. Now, I would have to think that when these two young ladies upstairs are being attacked, this would have to be a scary thing for them. I would have to think that they would be screaming at the top of their lungs, especially being attacked the way they were over and over and over. And the narrative that they were asleep in their beds, when the autopsy report revealed one of them had defensive wounds. You don't get defensive wounds when you're asleep. You get defensive wounds by doing this. And when a woman is having to do this, being attacked, you can bet there is some screaming going on. So, as well as when the events took place downstairs. Obviously, the gentleman was attacked first. The other young lady was apparently having to wait while he was being attacked for her turn. Yet she doesn't yell out, she doesn't scream, she doesn't make any noise. I mean, no noise at all. So, how is that possible? I know what you're thinking at this point. You're thinking, well, then that means the witness is obviously not disclosing everything that she knows. She would have to have heard screams and yelling, and she must be part of it in some way. Well, I don't believe that. And the reason I don't believe that is because law enforcement has looked at this thing every which way possible. And when I say law enforcement, I mean their local PD, their state PD, their Central Investigative Division, and they even brought in the FBI on this case. If they felt in any way that the other two roommates were involved in this, believe me, they would put it out there and they would be trying to prosecute them. And they're not, though. They're protecting them. So I have to believe that they believe that they're not involved. So that means there's another reason why these particular attacks were silent attacks. And how is that possible? Well, it is possible. And what I want to do in the next video is I'm going to explain exactly how it's possible. And I want to go over why I think it happened a certain way. And I'm also going to introduce some other evidence, or maybe not some other evidence. I'm going to introduce another scenario that's more plausible that probably took place. But with that being said, thank you for watching. Again, this is The Revealing with Pavarotti. This isn't that last video that I promised you. I'm going to go through several segments of this case, and I'm going to really spell it out so that everybody understands. As I go through those comments, I realize that there's some differing opinions and there's a lot of people that aren't following what I'm saying. I'm going to make sure that my point's clearly across before I finally wrap it all up and put it all back together. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.